Welcome to Sew with Monty. This is part 3 of our tote bag project, and in part 2 we finished our lining and now we're ready to start the outer part of our bag. So I've laid out the top part of my outer bag and I'm going to trace this off and cut 2 layers of this piece out, making sure that I keep my grain line parallel to my selvage so that it runs lengthwise. So let me cut this out and then we'll go to the next part. Now we're ready to cut the bottom part of the bag and the strap. We've just cut out the top part and put it aside. I'm going to mark around both of these pieces with white chalk. The strap is 26 inches long in this particular case. You can make your strap shorter or longer depending on what you want. If you want to make a longer strap, I suggest buying 1/8 of a yard more fabric, and that way you won't have to piece it. If you're going to piece your strap, cut it in the middle and then add on to each piece whatever you want to lengthen it. This is 26. What will happen if you purchase 44, 45 inch goods? You're not going to be able to get a 26. Probably the longest strap you're going to get is a 22, which is still plenty long enough, but you want to check it and make sure it's what you really want before you cut it out. And I'm going to finish doing this, cut this out, and then we'll go on to the next step. Now we have all the pieces cut out. I've got the top bag cut out, I've got the bottom bag, and the 2 straps. And if you notice, I've marked my strap with an X so I can tell what's the wrong side. This was a very difficult fabric to see that, and I wanted to make sure I didn't sew it upside down. First thing we're going to do is we're going to fold it over in half, matching the edges, and we're going to press it in half. And when I'm pressing, I like to use pins in my press surface so that I don't burn my fingers. And I'm just going to go along and press the crease using some steam and press this outside crease into my strap. Once I have the crease pressed, I'm going to open up the strap and I'm going to fold over each side to the center crease. And again, I'm going to pin this down so that I don't burn my fingers as I do it. It also helps to hold it in place a little better than my hands. So I'm going to do this on both sides, and then I'm going to press it again. And then this one's folded in. I'm going to press the other side, or pin the other side, so that I can press it too. Both raw edges of this strap are going to meet in the middle where the original fold was. So I've got this almost pinned down, and I'm going to give it a good press. I'm using glass head pins, so that way if my iron goes over it, it doesn't melt the plastic head pin and end up sticking to my fabric or damaging the pin. So now we're going to give this a good press one more time. I'm using steam on a cotton setting because this is a cotton blend, but it's mostly cotton, so I'm using a cotton setting. I love my iron. It has no cord, as you see. Well, it's all electric. It sits on a base, and I have no cord to mess with. It's made by Panasonic, and it's very lightweight and really steams well. So now we're going to take all the pins out, and we're going to take it one more time and fold it again back on the original fold. So I'm going to fold it over, and this time I want to match my 2 outside folded edges that I just pressed and make sure I've got them right on top of each other. This is really important now. We want to be very particular. It's a critical time for this strap. And then we're going to press the last pressing on it. When we finish pressing this, we will have it folded with 4 layers of fabric, and then we're going to take it to the machine and we're going to edge stitch the outside edge of this strap. I'm going to do both of them. So once I get this one done, I'll do the other one, and then I'll take it to the sewing machine and I will edge stitch this strap right along here. So let me do the other strap and then we'll start sewing. I have my straps made now, and I'm going to place them on the top part of my outer bag, But first I need to put them in a certain place. So I'm going to come over 4 inches. And I'm using my seam gauge. I'm going to come over 4 inches from the edge. And I'm going to draw a little red mark. That's going to be where the outside edge of my strap is going to be placed. And then I'm going to very carefully place it over here, making sure I don't get a twist in it. You don't want to twist your strap so that when you raise it up, it's backwards. So you want to make sure that you keep it on the same side, and come over here and place the other strap. So let's put this one in place, and I'm going to pin it twice. When I'm finished pinning it, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to gently sew over the edges this way, back, and this way 3 times so that I can tack my straps to both sides of my fronts. Now my other front will be the back side, the front and side and back side of my bag. So once I have this placed, see, like this, making sure that I'm on the same side of my strap, very important, I'll tack it down with my sewing machine, and then I'll take you to the next step. I have my straps tacked to the top part of my outer bag, and I want to talk a little bit more about the strap. I did mention this prior. I've used a size 4 stitch length because this is very thick, and it helps negotiate this thickness a lot better if you've got a longer stitch. Plus, it makes a prettier top stitch, and I've also put it on the fold side as well as the seam side. So it gives it kind of an evenness. Now this isn't necessary, it's just an option, but I just like the feel of having the stitching on both sides. I've also made sure that I place my seam to the outside edge. Now that's not necessary, you can place it to the inside edge, but you want to make sure that both straps on both sides are oriented in the same direction. So I've done mine with the seam on the outside. You could do it with the inside. Just make sure they're alike. Let's move on, and we're going to start sewing up the rest of the bag. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the bag over, and I'm going to sew down both sides of my bag, here and here. Let's turn it where you can see it. So I'm going to sew down through here, matching my edges, 1/2 inch seam allowance and a 1/2 inch seam allowance here with a 3 stitch length, backing up on both ends. Then I'm going to take the lower part of my bag, which is here. This would be the very bottom. This is the side that will sew to the top bag. And I'm going to sew with right sides together, here and here. So let's do that, and then we'll go on. I have my side seam sewn together, top bag, and I've pressed it open. I used a 3 stitch length, 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I did the same on this side and pressed it open. The straps are attached to the top, as you can see. And one thing I wanted to mention too, I didn't mention prior, the top of this bag, or the print on the top of this bag, make sure when you're sewing it together that if it is a one-way print, in other words, if all my beads had been flying in the same direction, that would have made it a one-way print. And you don't want to have one side upside down and the other side right side up. So check your print before you sew it together and before you put your straps on. The bottom part of my bag is sewn as well. It's a little hard to see because it's black, but I have a 1/2 inch seam allowance pressed open as well. Now, there's a couple ways you could have done this. I could have sewn one bottom to one side and one bottom to the other side. The problem with that was, my opinion is, that it's a little more difficult to match the 4 seams intersection if I have it sewn to this and this first. I'd rather go in the round and sew it up so that I don't have this offset here where the 2 match up. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take the right side of my bag, like this, and I'm going to slip the right side of my bottom over top of it. So right sides are together, like this. Then I'm going to line my seams up on top of each other, and this time I'm going to use clips, and I'm going to clip it together. I start by lining my seams up first, and then I fill in the blanks, everything in between. So my clips are on the outside edge here, and then I'm just going to go along lining up my edges and clipping them. I'm going to sew all the way around in this circle using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, overlapping my seam when I get to the other side. And you want to just make sure, clip and make sure that it's fitting perfectly and that you don't have any issues with length. If you do, then you need to address that first. You might need to take one side in a little bit so that it fits the other. But so far mine's looking pretty good. So I'm going to sew all the way around through here, and then I'm going to press it so that my seam is down toward the bottom, and on this side I'm going to put a 1/4 inch top stitch right along here. I'm going to use the 4 inch length so it looks like my strap and adds a little special something there. So let me do that, and then I'll bring it back over here and show you the next step. Now my bottom bag is stitched to my top bag. And if you notice the corner here, it's got a little tuck in there, but you can see that my corner is nice and smooth. The line is clean. Had I sewn these two together first, it might have went up and then back down or vice versa, and it's shown where these two join together. So either way is fine. You just want to make sure that you keep your intersection clean and make sure your cross is accurate. The last thing we're going to do is sew the bottom up and sew our corners up like we did the lining. So we'll sew across the bottom, and then we'll sew our corners just like we did the lining, so that it's closed up here. Let me do that, and then we'll come back and we'll finish our bag off. I have the corners of the outside of my bag sewn together, and it's starting to shape up really nice. This is the inside, or the inside of the bag, the wrong side of the fabric. And let me turn it over and show you what the right side looks like. It's going to be adorable with the yellow lining, and we get the corners straightened out. I've given them a little press. So you can start to see the dimension of the bag, and the straps are attached and tangled. There we go. So you can see how cute it's going to be, and then with the yellow lining, it's going to be adorable. So let's go ahead and finish it off so we can see this cute little bag. Now it's time to put the lining to the bag. Don't forget in your lining that you need an opening over here of at least 4 inches. That might be a little hard. Some of you might have a bigger hand. You might want to go 5 inches, but definitely have an opening here. I'm going to put the right side of my lining to the right side of the bag by taking the bag, turning it inside out, and then leaving the lining right side out. First thing I'm going to do is match the seams. And I'm going to use the clips again, and I want to clip the seams first. Much like I did when I sewed the bottom and top outer part of the bag together. Make sure your straps are down in there very good, and then you want to continue clipping all the way around the outside edge of your bag, making sure everything fits together and that the lining and the bag are the same length. So I'll finish clipping all the way around through here so that they are together. Then I'm going to sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around here. I have the lining attached to the outside of the bag. And the next part, I think, is the cleverest part of this whole bag. So that the lining doesn't pull out of the bag when you reach inside of it, we're going to tether it together with the bottom of the outer part of the bag. So we're going to turn it like this so you can see both bottoms, the bottom of the outer part and the bottom of the lining. Then I'm going to flip them over so that the two bottoms touch, like this. And I'm going to sew across these edges. Let me pin it with my little clips. Clip it, I guess. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to do this on both sides. I'm going to take these two sides right here. See, that's the bottom of my bag. Bottom of the outer part, bottom of my lining. And I'm just going to touch it like this. Now make sure you put the bottoms to the bottom in this manner So if you need to do this, rewind this video so you see how I laid it out, because it's a little bit confusing, but it makes such a difference, because I'm going to tack right along here, just outside my actual seam line, backstitch, and go across there. Reason being, when I reach into my bag, I won't accidentally grab the lining and pull the whole thing inside out. Let me go back and tack it, and then I'll show you the final steps. At this point, your bag probably looks like a bit of bad laundry, but we're going to fix that. The bottoms are tacked together, and I just use the white thread. It doesn't matter, it's not going to show, and I'm going to be top stitching for the last step on the outside with white, so I didn't want to change my thread. The next thing is I'm going to find that side seam that has the hole in it, right here, and I'm going to reach inside here, and I'm going to start taking the right side of everything and pulling it through this hole. Now this takes a while, so don't get frustrated. You're going to be turning. If you can work with a 4-inch hole, it's better, because you have less hole to sew up when you're finished. So I'm going to keep turning this. Be patient with it. Don't give up on it. It gets a little crazy. You just have to have turning faith. Almost. Okay. Now, see how cool that is? That's the lining side. This is the outside. I have 2 more steps to go, and my bag is complete. What I love the most about it is I can't pull the lining out from the inside because it's tacked at the bottom. So I'm going to press this top edge so that I can put a 1/4 inch top stitch across the top here, and I'm going to go inside and hand stitch the hole up. Now there's 2 ways you can do this. If you don't want to hand stitch, you can put the 2 sides together, pin it, and just edge stitch right here, making sure you back up and you back up. It's perfectly fine because this is a lining and it's not really going to show. If it were reversible, I most certainly would hand stitch this so you couldn't see it. So 1, 2, and the bag is done. The bag is finished, and I'm so pleased with the way it came out. It has a beautiful lining, looks like a honeycomb, little bees on the outside, pockets on the inside. This is going to be a gift for my girlfriend. I still have to sew up the little hole, this hand sew that, but it's going to be a gift for my girlfriend for her to take to the farmer's market and get her goodies in. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you in the next video.